What's up, everybody? Welcome to another installment of Why Do I Own This? A series of videos where I take a good hard look at my vinyl record collection and give an account for these physical objects that I own. To that end, I put a link in the description section below where you can check out my Discogs account that has a complete, up-to-date list of all the vinyl records that I currently own. You can take a look at my collection, drop back into the comments section below, and let me know which of my albums I need to answer for, especially the albums that fall outside of the narrow categories that I end up talking about on this channel most often. And we'll have some fun along the way. My name's Adam McDormand, and this is Medium Quality. Okay, this is a video that I am quite nervous to make because we're talking about the Beatles, and the Beatles are sacred. And if the Beatles are sacred, then Abbey Road is one of our holy texts. And I have 3 copies of Abbey Road. I have a 1978 reissue of the original mix of the album, the 2012 vinyl release of the 2009 digital remaster, and the 2019 50th anniversary remix by Giles Martin and Sam O'Kell. Now, the purpose of this video is not to do some kind of deep dive, close comparison of the 3 different versions of this album that I have, but rather to decide, do I need to have 3 copies of this album? And in the interest of being concise, I've come up with something that I'm referring to as the Maxwell's Silver Hammer test. Because essentially, everything that I have to say about these 3 versions of this incredible album can kind of be summed up by a careful listening of Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Let's talk about the 1978 reissue first. Abbey Road is an album that was only ever released in stereo. And like many early stereo albums, the instruments tend to be pinned to one side of the soundstage. Thankfully, because of the fact that Abbey Road was intended to be heard in stereo, it's a very thoughtful implementation of that technology. Way different than the contemporary reissues of earlier Beatles albums, where they took a mono track and literally pinned it to one speaker or the other. Those earlier poppy Beatles albums on stereo records are not my favorite, but this is an incredible album. When you put this thing through the MSH test, close your eyes. You can hear the bass pushed to the left, the drums mostly to the right, the vocals right in the center. And when you hear the sound of a hammer hitting an anvil, it is center of the sound stage. You can hear it right in front of you, maybe up just a little bit. It sounds great, especially at louder volumes. This is a fairly quiet album. But if you can find yourself a clean copy of one of these late 70s reissues, you're golden. Grab it. It's going to be great. So let's talk about the 2012 vinyl release of the 2009 digital remaster, Lacquer's Cut in-house at Abbey Road Studios. To my ear, this sounds fairly similar to that 70s reissue, which I take as a sign that this is pretty faithful to the source material. I've read some complaints about this version being a quiet record, but really, it's pretty close to that 78 reissue, if not just barely louder. Putting this version through the MSH test yields fairly similar results. It has what I would describe as a slightly deeper, fuller soundstage, and when I close my eyes and listen for the hammer, it's physically higher up in the soundstage, but also bigger. And yet you still have the bass panned mostly to the left, the drums panned mostly to the right, with some elements hanging out in the center. I would consider this to be a very clean, almost analytical representation of the original source material. I think they did a great job with this, and if this is the version of the album that you have, you're good to go. So what about the 50th anniversary Giles Martin remix? Well, this is a unique beast. Honestly, I was expecting this version to be much louder than the other 2, but it really wasn't. And that was my first hint to just how much respect and care was dedicated to this version of the album. The most noticeable change to this album is the fact that the drums and bass are no longer panned to one side of the mix or the other. They're pretty clearly hanging out low in the center of the soundstage, and they're big and warm, and they're mixed like modern instruments, which I think for most purists, those of us who grew up listening to these albums, it sounds different. Here's my hot take, and feel free to drop into the comments and tell me why I'm crazy. But I think a casual listener is going to prefer this 2019 remix of the album. They might not be able to exactly put their finger on why they like it better, but I think they're going to prefer it. And honestly, as I was listening to side 2 of the 50th anniversary remix of Abbey Road, I was struck by how cinematic and emotionally resonant these songs are. But I let this new mix carry me away through Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, breaking out into the end, and I was moved to tears. It was an element of catharsis. I think we need these songs, and I really believe that the new mix works in service of these incredible songs that mean so much to us. So I'm torn. If space were no concern, you just keep all 3 of them. And I don't know that it's fair for me to keep all 3 versions of this album. Maybe it's time for me to let one of these things go. Someone may end up with a really nice, listenable copy of Abbey Road and be able to hear those songs that mean so much to us. I don't know, guys. Drop into the comments section below and tell me if you could only keep one of those 3 versions, or some other one that you already have. Like, which is the one that you keep? Just maybe that will help me make the decision for myself. Guys, that's going to do it for this episode. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, make sure you subscribe. And until next time, guys, keep spinning that good stuff. What a time to be alive.